A black single mother awoke to a sight that defied logic. The CEO of a major corporation casually preparing breakfast in her humble kitchen. The words that followed his bizarre appearance would leave her utterly dumbfounded. "You shouldn't be here." The words tumbled out of David Mitchell's mouth before his brain could catch up. There he stood, David Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Corp., a monolithic force in the tech world, occupying the cramped kitchen of Camila Santos's modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood. He clutched a coffee mug as if teleporting into a stranger's home was an everyday occurrence. Camila Santos, 28, a fiercely independent single mother raising her 6-year-old daughter, Isabella, blinked, desperately trying to reconcile reality with what felt like a vivid dream. For 3 years, she'd been a ghost in the machine, a cleaner on the early shift at Mitchell Corp's gleaming corporate headquarters. Always unseen, always overlooked. Now, against all conceivable odds, the most powerful man in the company was standing in Her Times kitchen. "How? How did you get in here?" she whispered, instinctively tightening the belt of her robe, seeking a semblance of control in a situation spiraling beyond comprehension. David fixed her with a bewildered, almost haunted gaze. His impeccably tailored clothes were rumpled and bore the faint scent of stale liquor. A small, angry cut marred his forehead. His eyes, usually sharp and calculating, held the lost, disoriented look of someone jolted awake from a horrifying nightmare. "I don't know," he confessed, his voice a low rasp, as he gingerly placed the coffee cup on the edge of the sink. His hands trembled ever so slightly. "The last thing I remember is leaving the office last night after that god-awful board meeting, the one where Henderson tried to stage a coup. After that, nothing. Just blackness. Then I wake up here, and you were asleep on the couch." A chill deeper than the morning air permeated Camila's blood. She had sacrificed her own bed, sleeping on the stiff couch, because Isabella, plagued by night terrors, had sought refuge in her mother's bed. And now, a stranger, even one as seemingly harmless as David Mitchell, appeared at this moment, had spent the night in her house, a fact she found deeply unsettling. "My daughter," she began, her voice laced with growing panic, as she instinctively took a step toward the bedroom. "She's fine," David interjected quickly, holding up a hand in a gesture of reassurance. "I checked on her when I woke up. She's sleeping peacefully. I didn't disturb her, I swear." Camila froze in the hallway, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Nothing about this scenario made sense. David Mitchell wasn't just any CEO. He was notorious within the company for his imperious demeanor, his tendency to treat employees, particularly those in lower-level positions like cleaning and security staff, as mere cogs in a machine. She had inadvertently overheard his callous conversations in the office during her late-night shifts. Cynical remarks about employees lacking ambition, derisive comments about the welfare state breeding laziness, and a particularly cruel anecdote about an employee forced to miss work because of a sick child, a tale he'd dismissed with a sneering remark about people like that always having an excuse. And yet, here he was, standing in her modest home, projecting an air of vulnerability and confusion that seemed utterly at odds with the man she knew by reputation. "Listen," David continued, running a hand through his disheveled hair, further creasing his expensive suit. "I know how insane this must sound, but I need your help. I can't remember how I got here. And there's something about last night. Something important. Something I'm forgetting. Like a crucial piece of a puzzle that's gone missing." Camila scrutinized him, her gaze sharp and unwavering. There was a palpable sincerity in his voice, an undercurrent of desperation that didn't quite align with the arrogant, dismissive man she had only ever observed from a distance. "Why would I help you?" she challenged, folding her arms across her chest. "You don't even know my name, do you? 3 years cleaning your offices, and I bet you never even noticed me." David faltered, visibly uncomfortable under her intense scrutiny. I do. You work in the building, Early shift. Cleaning. You're practically invisible to people like me. I know. His expression flickered, a subtle shift revealing a flicker of something. Recognition, perhaps, or the sting of guilt. But before he could elaborate, Camila's cell phone shattered the tense silence. An unknown number flashed on the screen. "Hello, Camila Santos." The voice on the other end was cold, controlled, and utterly professional. Camila's heart hammered against her ribs. Rebecca Mitchell, David's younger sister, the corporation's vice president, and widely rumored to be even more ruthless than her brother when it came to safeguarding the family's interests. "I don't know what you're talking about," Camila retorted, fixing David with a direct, unwavering stare. He had become perfectly still, his face etched with a mixture of apprehension and dawning comprehension. "My dear, we know exactly where my brother spent the night," Rebecca purred, her voice dripping with barely veiled menace. "And we also know that an opportunistic cleaning lady like yourself might see this as a golden opportunity to, shall we say, leverage the situation to her advantage." The words landed like a physical blow. A sharp, stinging slap. There it was. The insidious prejudice she battled every day, amplified tenfold by the sheer improbability of her current circumstances. David lunged for the phone, but Camila deftly sidestepped his grasp. "Listen carefully, Rebecca," she said, her voice hardening with a resolve that surprised even herself. "I don't know what your brother was doing here, but I am not an opportunist, and I am definitely not a blackmailer." Rebecca emitted a chilling, mirthless laugh. "Of course not. That's why I'm going to make you an offer. $5,000 to simply forget this ever happened. Consider it a windfall. It's more money than someone like you sees in a year." A familiar, fiery anger surged through Camila. The same white-hot rage that simmered beneath the surface every time she was treated as less than human because of her skin color, her economic status, her very existence. "Someone like me," she echoed slowly, her voice dangerously low. "You understand perfectly. Take the money, sign a confidentiality agreement, and we'll all go our separate ways. Refuse, and we will find ways to make your life very, very difficult." David was now frantically mouthing words, a silent plea for her to end the conversation, to placate his sister. But Camila had already heard enough. She had endured a lifetime of being underestimated, dismissed, and demeaned. Rebecca Mitchell had just crossed a line. What Rebecca, in her arrogance, failed to grasp was that Camila had been forged in the crucible of hardship, an environment where survival demanded cunning, resilience, and an unwavering determination to outwit those who sought to exploit her. She had earned a business degree while juggling 3 soul-crushing jobs, raised a daughter single-handedly since the tender age of 16, and honed an uncanny ability to spot opportunities where others saw only obstacles. And at this precise moment, as she locked eyes with David Mitchell, a man stripped bare of his corporate armor, lost, bewildered, and clearly concealing a truth of profound significance, Camila realized that the universe had placed something far more valuable than a measly $5,000 within her grasp. "Rebecca," she said, her voice regaining its calm, measured tone. "Thank you for the offer, but I don't think you understand the situation as well as you think you do." A beat of silence hung heavy in the air. "I'm being kind, Camila," Rebecca said finally, the threat now palpable, her voice laced with icy malice. "But that kindness has an expiration date." Camila disconnected the call and turned her attention back to David, who was watching her with a complex mixture of admiration, apprehension, and a dawning realization of the precariousness of his situation. What neither of them knew was that Rebecca Mitchell's phone call had been her first, and perhaps most fatal, miscalculation. And what Camila kept carefully concealed was the strategic intelligence that lay dormant beneath her unassuming exterior, an intelligence that had been sharpened and honed by years of silent injustices. As David remained frozen, torn between familial loyalty and something his conscious mind couldn't yet fully access, Camila made a decision that would irrevocably alter the course of their lives. If they wanted to play a game of power, prejudice, and corporate intrigue, she would demonstrate that she had mastered the rules better than any of them could have ever imagined. If this tale of injustice and resilience resonates with you, remember to subscribe, because the battle has only just begun, and Camila Santos is poised to deliver a lesson the Mitchells will never forget. "You don't understand who you're messing with," David muttered, a strange blend of concern and grudging admiration in his voice. "Rebecca doesn't usually make empty threats." Camila studied him, noting the slight tremor in his hands, the vulnerability that now seemed to radiate from him. The powerful CEO she knew from the corporate corridors was gone, replaced by someone far more fragile, far more human. "And you don't understand who your sister is messing with either," she countered quietly, as she moved toward the window, peering out into the pre-dawn gloom. A black sedan had been parked across the street for the past hour, its tinted windows obscuring the occupants within. "How old do you think I am?" The question caught David completely off guard. "I don't know. 25. 26. 28. Do you know how many of those years I spent being invisible to people like you?" She turned to face him, her eyes blazing with an intensity he hadn't detected before. "All of them. 28 years of listening to people like your sister casually dismiss people like me, as if we were defective products, unworthy of basic human decency." David swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down on him. There was something about her posture, the unwavering strength of her gaze, that made him feel profoundly inadequate. The phone rang again, its shrill tone slicing through the tense atmosphere. This time, it was Camila's work number. Camila Santos. The voice on the other end was clipped and impersonal. "Mr. Peterson, the night supervisor. I need to inform you that your employment with Mitchell Corp has been terminated, effective immediately. Disciplinary issues. Your belongings will be mailed to you." Camila closed her eyes for a fleeting moment, allowing the news to wash over her. 3 years of back-breaking labor, erased with a 30-second phone call. Disciplinary issues, she repeated slowly, a wry smile playing on her lips. Interesting. And what, precisely, were those issues? That's confidential. You'll receive the documentation in a few days. David gestured frantically, desperately trying to convey that he had no knowledge of, nor involvement in, her termination. But Camila already understood the insidious machinations at play. "Mr. Peterson, just a quick question. Who contacted you to inform you of my dismissal for these disciplinary reasons?" Silence crackled on the line, punctuated only by Peterson's nervous breathing. "It was someone from Mitchell Corp, wasn't it? Someone high up. Perhaps Rebecca Mitchell herself." I can't confirm details about that," he stammered. "Thank you. That tells me everything I need to know." She ended the call and fixed David with a steely gaze as he slumped heavily into a kitchen chair, his face pale and drawn. "My sister is trying to isolate you," he said quietly, his voice laced with despair. "Without a job, without an income, you become more vulnerable to her proposal." "Vulnerable?" Camila scoffed, a harsh, humorless sound. "You want to know what real vulnerability is, David? It's being 16, pregnant, and thrown out of your home by parents who value their precious family reputation above their own flesh and blood." David stared at her, his eyes wide with shock and a burgeoning understanding of the strength that lay hidden beneath her quiet demeanor. "It's working 3 dead-end jobs while struggling to attend night classes. Hauling a small child around because you can't afford a babysitter. It's hearing college professors say, maybe you should rethink your priorities when you miss a class because your daughter is running a fever of 104. She crossed to the refrigerator, where a collection of photos of Isabella were affixed with colorful magnets. Isabella smiling broadly in her school uniform. Isabella proudly displaying a crayon drawing. Isabella fast asleep, clutching a well-worn teddy bear. It's graduating with honors in business administration, while scrubbing toilets in the early hours of the morning, only to discover that the corporate world would rather hire the boss's friend's son who barely managed to graduate, than a black woman and single mother, no matter how qualified she is. David remained silent, visibly shaken by her raw, unfiltered honesty. So don't give me any of that sanitized, corporate talk about vulnerability, Camila continued, her voice resonating with a power that seemed to fill the small kitchen. Your sister just handed me the opportunity I've been waiting for years. She just doesn't realize it yet. The phone rang a third time, its insistent jangle shattering the silence. Camila glanced at the display, and a slow, predatory smile spread across her face. A smile utterly unlike any David had seen before. Rebecca Mitchell, she answered, placing the phone on speakerphone. How efficient of you to sever my livelihood so quickly. Truly impressive. I see you got the message, came Rebecca's cold, cutting voice. This is just the beginning. Dear, I have contacts all over town. No cleaning company will touch you after I finish spreading the word about your lack of professionalism. David frantically signaled for Camila to hang up, to cease provoking her, but she ignored him completely, her eyes fixed on some distant point. Lack of professionalism? Camila repeated thoughtfully, as if turning the phrase over in her mind. Interesting. And what kind of information would you be disseminating? Use your imagination. An employee who attempts to exploit compromising situations to blackmail company executives. That doesn't exactly look good on a resume. Oh, I see. And do you have any evidence to substantiate these allegations? Rebecca laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. Honey, I don't need proof. I just need a sterling reputation and a well-placed word. Who do you think they're going to believe? A Mitchell? Or, well, you get the picture. The silence that followed was so thick, so suffocating, that David could hear the frantic pounding of his own heart. Rebecca, Camila finally said, her voice dangerously calm. Thank you for this conversation. It's been enlightening. I'm glad you understand the situation. The $5,000 offer still stands. Rebecca pressed, her voice laced with a desperate edge. But only until the offer is declined. Then it's declined. Definitely. Then you've chosen the hard path. What a shame. I'm sure your daughter, Isabella, isn't it, will be so proud watching her mother being publicly humiliated. David shot out of his chair, gesticulating wildly, pleading with Camila not to respond. But it was too late. The casual mention of Isabella had crossed a line, shattering the fragile truce that had held them in check. You just mentioned my daughter, Camila said, each word articulated with surgical precision, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. That changes everything. Is that a threat? Rebecca sneered. What are you going to do? Threaten me? With what resources? What connections? Capt. Canning reasoning. What connections? It's not threats that concern me, Rebecca, Camila replied, her voice barely above a whisper, yet radiating a power that made David's blood run cold. And I promise you, you will remember this conversation for the rest of your life. She ended the call before Rebecca could utter another word. David stared at her, his face a mask of terror and grudging admiration. You have no idea what you've just done. Rebecca can destroy your life, completely. No, Camila corrected, retrieving her aging laptop from the living room table. She thinks she can. There's a fundamental difference. She opened the computer, and David noticed something he hadn't seen before. A series of meticulously organized folders on the desktop, their names stark and revealing. Corporate irregularities, recorded conversations, questionable correspondence. What's this? He asked, though a part of him already knew the answer. 3 years cleaning offices in the early hours. Camila explained, casually browsing through the files. You'd be surprised what people leave lying around. On desks, in trash cans, on printers, documents they forgot to shred, conversations they assumed no one was listening to. David felt his blood turn to ice. You were collecting information. I was surviving. She corrected him, her gaze unwavering. And learning. Do you know what the difference is between people like your sister and people like me? You underestimate everyone you deem inferior, and that makes you incredibly careless. She clicked on a specific folder, revealing dozens of audio files, scanned documents, and even a few incriminating photographs. For example, Camila continued, selecting an audio file. Remember the board meeting back in March, when the board decided to lay off 200 employees to cut costs, and then, on the very same day, approved a $2 million bonus for themselves. Rebecca's voice, sharp and commanding, echoed through the laptop speakers. It's simple, folks. We cut the fat at the bottom and keep the profits at the top. The media will whine about necessary restructuring for a week, and then they'll forget all about it. David's face turned ashen. You recorded the board meetings? Not all of them, Camila replied calmly. Just the most interesting ones, like the one where your sister suggested finding creative ways to avoid paying benefits to employees fired for false disciplinary issues. David's world was crumbling around him, piece by piece. He had profoundly, catastrophically, underestimated the woman standing before him. Why didn't you ever use this before? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Camila met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Because I'm not like you. I don't destroy people for pleasure, or power, or simply because I can. But when someone threatens my daughter, she paused, her voice hardening with a steely resolve. When someone threatens my daughter, I become exactly the kind of person your sister should have feared from the beginning. Isabella appeared in the doorway to the bedroom, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Mummy, why are you talking so loudly? Camila immediately closed the laptop and rushed to her daughter's side. Sorry, sweetie. Mummy was just solving some work problems. Did you get fired? Isabella asked, her voice laced with the uncanny perception that children often possess. Let's just say Mummy is going to be changing jobs, Camila replied, gently kissing the girl's forehead. But don't worry. Sometimes change is good. Isabella glanced at David, who was attempting to shrink into the kitchen chair. Is he still here? Is he still here? Isabella, is he still here? For now, yes. But soon he'll be leaving, and he's going to solve some very serious problems that have suddenly arisen. David understood the veiled message. Camila Santos wasn't just a cleaning lady who had been unfairly dismissed. She was a woman who had spent 3 years diligently documenting every irregularity, every compromising conversation, every questionable decision made within the hallowed halls of Mitchell Corp. And now, Rebecca had made the fatal error of transforming her from a silent observer into an active and formidably intelligent adversary. Each act of humiliation, each calculated attempt to demean and control her, had only served to fuel something within her that her oppressors could never comprehend. A quiet, unwavering strength born of injustice, a force that was about to be unleashed with devastating consequences. What Rebecca Mitchell didn't know was that with each act of contempt, she was unwittingly writing her own sentence, defeat, and that behind those calm eyes lay a strategic intelligence forged by years of forced invisibility and silent injustices. It was an intelligence honed by countless observations, a deep understanding of human nature, and an unyielding determination to right the wrongs she had endured. For a moment, when Kama had bowed her head in the face of threats over the phone, everyone thought they had broken her spirit, that the years of quiet servitude had finally extinguished the fire within. But those who know true strength know that it grows precisely in silence, drawing power from the very darkness it seeks to overcome, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge and show that patience is not weakness, but the most powerful weapon of those who know exactly when and how to use it. A weapon forged in the crucible of adversity. You don't understand, David said, his voice laced with a mixture of concern and desperation. Watching Kama close her laptop with a calmness that disturbed him, a stillness that masked the storm raging beneath the surface. Rebecca will use all the company's resources against you. Lawyers, private investigators, contacts in the media. She has the power to destroy your life completely, to bury you beneath an avalanche of legal and public relations attacks. Camila smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, a subtle curve of her lips that belied the intensity of her resolve. David, you still don't understand, do you? I'm not fighting your sister. I'm preparing the funeral for her career, a meticulously planned and flawlessly executed ceremony. She picked up the phone and dialed a number, her movements precise and deliberate. Dr. Hamilton. It's Camila Santos. Yes, the time has come. The years of preparation, the countless hours of research, the carefully laid plans were about to come to fruition. David frowned, his brow furrowed with confusion and growing unease. Who was Dr. Hamilton? 15 minutes. Agreed. Location and doctor. Bring everything. The full arsenal, the complete dossier, the irrefutable evidence of years of corporate malfeasance. As she got ready, Camila explained without looking at David, her gaze fixed on some distant point, her voice calm and measured. 3 years ago, when I started working at Mitchell Corp, a naive young woman hoping to provide a better life for her daughter, I met a man in the building's cafeteria, a labor lawyer specializing in civil rights, a champion of the underdog, a warrior for justice. He had been unfairly fired from a large firm after reporting irregularities, a victim of the very system he sought to reform. Dr. Marcus Hamilton. David whispered, recognizing the name with a growing sense of dread. He sued Sterling and Associates for racial discrimination. He won $3 million, a landmark victory that sent shockwaves through the legal community. Exactly, and since then, he's been collecting cases against companies like yours, quietly building a war chest of evidence, waiting for the right moment to strike. You weren't the main target until now. You were just another stepping stone. Another example of corporate greed and indifference. David felt his stomach churn, a wave of nausea washing over him as the full scope of Camila's plan began to dawn on him. Did you plan this from the beginning? No. Initially, I just wanted to survive, to provide a stable and loving home for Isabella, to raise my daughter, and maybe one day get a better job, a chance to escape the cycle of poverty and discrimination. But when you spent 3 years treating me like furniture, as if I were nothing more than a disposable object, when Rebecca decided I was disposable, she paused, looking directly at him, her eyes filled with a steely resolve. You turned an invisible employee into a very well-informed enemy, a silent observer who saw everything, heard everything, and remembered everything. Her phone rang. Rebecca again. Camila, dear, I hope you've reconsidered our conversation because I've just discovered some very interesting things about you, things that could potentially derail your little scheme. Camila put it on speakerphone, gesturing for David to remain silent, his face a mask of apprehension. What kind of things? Rebecca, well, it seems you have a degree in business administration, a rather impressive achievement, but you never mentioned that on your employee file, a deliberate omission designed to deceive your employers, omission of information, grounds for dismissal, for just cause, a clear violation of company policy. Interesting. And where did you get this information? I have my sources, a network of informants who are always willing to provide me with valuable insights. I also discovered that you had financial problems 2 years ago. Overdue debts, a history of late payments. This raises questions about integrity, about your trustworthiness as an employee with access to sensitive company information. David noticed Camila's expression hardened slightly, a flicker of anger in her eyes. Rebecca, did you hire a private investigator to dig into my life, to unearth every skeleton in my closet, to expose my vulnerabilities to the world? Necessary precautions. a standard practice when dealing with potentially disgruntled employees. And if you think you can blackmail me with your evidence, know that I can easily prove it was obtained illegally. Invasion of privacy, breach of corporate confidentiality, a clear violation of the law. Oh, I see. So, you're accusing me of crimes, of engaging in unlawful activities to harass and intimidate me. If necessary, yes. One word for me to the police about a problematic employee with access to sensitive information, and you'll have much bigger problems than unemployment, much more serious legal repercussions to contend with. David gestured frantically, trying to signal that Rebecca was going too far, that she was playing a dangerous game, but Camila ignored him, her focus unwavering. Rebecca, thank you for this conversation. It was enlightening. It has provided me with valuable insights into your character and your methods. I hope it was. The 5,000 offer still stands, but only until the end of the day. A final opportunity to salvage your reputation and your future. After that. What? After that, you'll just be another sad story that no one will want to hear. Another casualty of the corporate world. Another forgotten face in the crowd. Camila hung up and immediately started another call. Dr. Hamilton. Change of plans. Bring your contacts at the public prosecutor's office and the press. 2. Let the world witness the downfall of Rebecca Mitchell. Rebecca just confessed to some very interesting things. Admissions that could potentially land her in serious legal trouble. David looked at her as if he were seeing a completely different person. A woman transformed from a timid cleaning lady into a formidable force to be reckoned with. Did you record the conversation? David, I've been recording everything for 3 years. Every meeting. Every phone call. Every interaction. It's a matter of survival. A necessary precaution in a world where the powerful often prey on the vulnerable. An hour later, they met with Dr. Marcus Hamilton at a discreet cafe. A secluded spot far from the prying eyes of the corporate world. The man was imposing black, around 50 years old, well-tailored suit. A presence that commanded respect. A quiet authority that filled the room. Kama, he greeted her warmly, his voice deep and resonant. And this must be David Mitchell. David extended his hand hesitantly, his grip weak and uncertain. Doctor, let's get straight to the point. Doctor, Hamilton said, opening a briefcase, revealing a treasure trove of legal documents. Camila gave me some preliminary information. Systematic discrimination. Wrongful termination. Threats. Illegal investigation of an employee's private life. That's enough for at least 3 different lawsuits. A legal barrage that could cripple Mitchell Corp. But that's just the beginning, Camila added, connecting her laptop. Show him the executive meetings folder, Dr. Hamilton. The hidden files. The secret recordings. The smoking gun that would expose Rebecca's crimes to the world. They spent the next hour reviewing evidence, audio recordings, photographed documents, deleted emails that Camila had recovered from printers and trash cans, piecing together a damning narrative of corporate corruption and abuse. My God. Doctor, Hamilton murmured as he listened to a recording in which Rebecca discussed how to get rid of problematic employees by creating false disciplinary charges. A chillingly calculated plan to silence dissent and maintain control. This is criminal conspiracy. A blatant disregard for the law. A clear violation of human rights. David was pale, his face ashen. I never knew Rebecca was doing these things. He was a man of privilege, shielded from the harsh realities of the corporate world, blissfully unaware of the injustices perpetrated in his own company. But you allowed it, Camila said calmly, her voice devoid of emotion. Every time you turned a blind eye to her management techniques, every time you chose not to know how profits were increasing while employees were disappearing, you were complicit in her crimes, an enabler of her tyranny. Dr. Hamilton closed the folder, his expression grim. Camila, with this material, I can sue them for racial discrimination, illegal retaliation, violation of labor rights, and create a federal case for civil rights violations, a legal earthquake that would shake Mitchell Corp to its very foundations. "How long?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can file the first documents today. The temporary injunction to protect you from further retaliation will be issued in 48 hours, providing a shield against Rebecca's wrath. The main case, 6 months to complete resolution. A long and arduous battle for justice." David swallowed hard, his throat dry with fear. 6 months if they want to fight. But with evidence like this, I suspect they'll prefer a substantial settlement well before then. A desperate attempt to avoid public scrutiny and legal repercussions. Camila smiled, a hint of steel in her eyes. "Dr. Hamilton, I don't want a settlement." The lawyer raised his eyebrows, surprised by her unwavering resolve. "No, I want this to go public. I want every employee they humiliated, every person they discriminated against to know that there are consequences for this kind of behavior, that they are not alone in their suffering. This is going to be a war, Kama. They're going to try to destroy your reputation, your life, to paint you as a villain and discredit your claims. They already have. The difference is that now I have allies, a team of dedicated professionals who are committed to fighting for justice." Dr. Hamilton smiled. "In that case, let's go to war, but we're going to win." When they left the cafe, David was visibly shaken, his world turned upside down. "Camila, there's still time to stop this. Rebecca may be extreme, but she's my sister." He was torn between loyalty to his family and a growing sense of responsibility to do what was right. "David." Camila stopped and looked him in the eye, her gaze unwavering. "Your sister just threatened my daughter, the most precious thing in my life. She hired investigators to invade my privacy, to expose my vulnerabilities. She's trying to criminalize me for having evidence of crimes she herself committed. I know, but there are no buts, no excuses for her behavior." Her voice was firm, final. "Rebecca chose to turn this into a war. I'm just going to finish what she started, to bring her reign of terror to an end." That night, after Isabella fell asleep, Camila sat down at the kitchen table with her laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating her determined face. She created a new file and began typing chronology of irregularities, Mitchell Corp 2021 to 2024. A meticulous record of the company's misdeeds, page after page. She documented every incident, every recording, every piece of evidence, organizing 3 years of systematic data collection into a clear and irrefutable timeline, a comprehensive indictment of Rebecca's crimes. David, who had stayed on the couch at her request not to go home until we clarified his situation, watched silently, his heart heavy with guilt and regret. "Can I ask you something?" he said, finally, his voice barely audible. "Why did you really do this? 3 years collecting evidence. That's a lot of work, a lot of risk, a tremendous investment of time and energy." Camila paused, typing, "because I knew that one day they would go too far, that their greed and arrogance would lead them to overstep the bounds of decency. And when that happened, I wanted to be prepared, to have the ammunition I needed to fight back." "But how did you know, David? How could you be so sure that this would happen?" "I grew up poor, black, and a single mother. I learned early on that the world isn't fair, that there are inherent inequalities that must be overcome, but that there's a difference between unfairness and systematic abuse, between isolated incidents of discrimination and a deliberate pattern of oppression. You crossed that line a long time ago." She saved the file and closed the laptop, her movements deliberate and decisive. "Tomorrow, Dr. Hamilton will file the first documents. Rebecca is going to find out she's not dealing with a scared cleaning lady. She's dealing with someone who has turned 3 years of silent humiliation into solid evidence, a force to be reckoned with." David remained silent, processing the magnitude of what was about to happen, the seismic shift that was about to engulf Mitchell Corp. "What about me?" he finally asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Karma studied him for a long moment, her eyes searching his soul. That's up to you, David. You can continue to be a silent accomplice, to protect your sister and preserve your privileged position. Or you can do the right thing for the first time in years, to stand up for justice and make amends for your past complicity. Her phone vibrated, a message from Dr. Hamilton. Documents ready for filing. Rebecca Mitchell has no idea what's coming. The storm that's about to break over her head. Camila smiled. But this time there was something definitive about that smile. A quiet confidence that radiated from within. It was the smile of someone who had spent 3 years quietly building a fortress while her enemies believed she was defenseless. A strategic mastermind who had outwitted her opponents at every turn. Under the weight of all those years of silent injustice, her hands moved with surgical precision across the keyboard, organizing evidence like a general preparing her army, a meticulous attention to detail that betrayed her unwavering resolve. But anyone watching closely would notice that it wasn't revenge that guided her movements, not a desire for retribution or personal gain. It was the meticulous power of someone who had turned every humiliation suffered into ammunition for a war that Rebecca Mitchell had started, but that Camila Santos was about to end in a way that would rewrite the rules of the game forever, to establish a new precedent for corporate accountability and social justice. The next morning, Rebecca arrived at the office confident, certain that she had weathered the storm, that Camila's threats were nothing more than empty bluster, until she found journalists at the door. A throng of reporters eager to break the story. "Miss Mitchell, is it true that your company fires employees for false disciplinary reasons?" shouted a reporter. Shoving a microphone in her face, she pushed past the cameras and hurried inside, her carefully constructed facade beginning to crumble. In the elevator, she called Karma, her voice laced with venom. "You don't know who you're messing with, the forces you're up against." "Actually," Camila interrupted, her voice calm and steady, "I know exactly who. And I'm not afraid." Dr. Hamilton filed 3 lawsuits today: racial discrimination, illegal retaliation, and criminal conspiracy. A triple blow that could cripple Mitchell Corp. "Impossible. You have no evidence, no proof to back up your outrageous claims." "I have 3 years of recordings, Rebecca, including you planning fake firings and calling black employees cultural problems. Damning evidence that exposes your racism and your disregard for the law." The silence was deafening, broken only by the hum of the elevator. "Oh, and the press already has copies of everything. A media frenzy that will expose your crimes to the world." Rebecca hung up and rushed to her office, her mind racing, her carefully laid plans unraveling before her eyes. David was waiting for her with a folder, his face etched with sadness and regret. "I'm resigning," he said simply, his voice filled with remorse. "And I'm going to testify against you, to tell the truth about your crimes." "You can't," her voice rising in desperation. "Yes, I can and I will." He smiled sadly. "Camila taught me that integrity is worth more than blood, that some things are worth fighting for." Rebecca opened the folder. Inside, her own resignation, letter of resignation from the board, and an agreement transferring her shares to a charitable trust, a complete surrender of her power and her wealth. Sign or face jail time. A stark choice with devastating consequences. She picked up the pen with trembling hands, her empire crumbling around her. In that moment, 3 years of silent humiliation turned into the most complete and devastating defeat an arrogant person could suffer, a humbling experience that stripped her of everything she held dear. Not only losing everything, but discovering that she had completely underestimated someone who turned every injustice she suffered into solid evidence against her, a testament to the power of resilience and determination. 6 months later, Camila adjusted her new blazer as she entered the Mitchell Court building, now renamed Sterling Industries. After the complete merger, a symbol of her victory and her transformative leadership, Director of Human Resources, she murmured, reading the sign on her new door, a position she had earned through her unwavering commitment to justice and equality. David had insisted on the position after he took full control of the company. Recognizing her exceptional leadership skills and her unwavering commitment to ethical business practices, Isabella ran down the hall, her face beaming with pride. "Mom, can I go to your meeting today?" "Of course, sweetheart. Today is special, a celebration of our collective triumph." The meeting was with former employees who had been unfairly dismissed, victims of Rebecca's ruthless management style. Dr. Hamilton had managed to reverse 47 cases, securing reinstatement and substantial compensation, a testament to his unwavering commitment to justice. "Every person here," Camilla told the assembled group, "represents a victory against a system that treated us as disposable, as if our lives and our contributions were meaningless." Her assistant handed her an envelope. It arrived today, a long-awaited message from the past. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Camilla, you were right about everything. I lost my license, my friends, my dignity. I live alone in a small apartment without resources, a prisoner of my own making. Maybe one day you'll forgive me. Rebecca." Camilla folded the letter calmly, her heart filled with compassion. Forgiveness was possible, but consequences were necessary, a crucial step in the process of healing and reconciliation. David appeared at the door, his face radiant with pride. "How are you feeling on your first official day?" "Fine. It's strange to be on the other side of the table, to be in a position of power and responsibility. You deserve to be here. By the way," he smiled, "Isabella told me she wants to be a lawyer like Dr. Hamilton, a future champion of justice. She said she wants to defend people like us, to protect the vulnerable and fight for equality." That afternoon, Camilla stopped by the old cleaning floor, a gesture of respect and gratitude. She greeted each employee by name, something she had never done before, a symbolic act of recognition and appreciation. "Principal," said Maria, one of the cleaners, her eyes filled with admiration, "thank you for everything you've done for us, for standing up for us when no one else would." "We protect each other," Kama replied, her voice filled with emotion. "That's how we change the world, by working together to create a more just and equitable society." That evening at home, Isabella did her homework while Camilla reviewed proposals for the new scholarship program, a program designed to provide opportunities for underprivileged students. "Mom," Isabella asked, her brow furrowed with concern, "are you still mad at that mean woman?" Camilla paused, her heart filled with compassion. "No, sweetheart. Anger doesn't build anything. Justice does. It heals and restores. And what is justice? It's when people like us get equal opportunities, when everyone has a chance to succeed, regardless of their background or their circumstances. It's when no one is invisible anymore, when everyone is seen and valued." Isabella smiled, her eyes shining with hope. "How did you do it? How did you overcome such adversity?" "I turned every injustice into evidence, every humiliation into motivation, and every no into fuel for a bigger yes," a powerful mantra that guided her every step. Rebecca had tried to break her spirit, but only strengthened her determination, forging her into a force to be reckoned with. The real revenge was not to destroy her, it was to build something bigger than she could ever imagine. A legacy of justice and equality that would inspire generations to come. Today, the foundation created by Camilla has helped hundreds of families, providing them with the resources and support they need to thrive. Rebecca lives in isolation, facing the consequences of years of systematic cruelty, a stark reminder of the destructive power of arrogance and greed. Camilla learned that the best response to prejudice is not to fight back with hatred, to perpetuate the cycle of violence and oppression. It is to prove that intelligence, dignity, and perseverance always win over arrogance, that kindness and compassion are the most powerful weapons in the fight for justice. If this story of transformation and justice has touched you, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes the greatest victory is not to bring down those who have hurt you, to seek revenge or retribution, It is to rise so high that they become irrelevant from your vantage point below, to transcend the negativity and create a better world for all.